What if I told you that the man behind Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the entire Marvel Universe started with absolutely nothing? Not just broke, but devastated by loss, betrayal, and failure. Stan Lee didn't just create superheroes, he became one himself. But his origin story is darker than any comic book villain's plot. By the time he was nearly 40, Stan had lost both his parents, watched his dreams crumble, and was stuck writing comics nobody cared about. He was ready to quit the industry entirely. But then something incredible happened. Today, we're diving into the untold story of how Stanley Lieber became Stan Lee, how he transformed from a broken man into the architect of a multi-billion-dollar empire. This isn't just about comic books. This is a story about resilience, creativity, and refusing to give up when everything falls apart. Let's start at the beginning. Stanley Martin Lieber was born in 1922 to Romanian immigrants, Jack and Celia Lieber. They lived in a tiny apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Jack worked as a dress cutter, but jobs were scarce during the Great Depression. The family struggled just to pay rent and buy food. Stan later recalled eating nothing but tomato and mayonnaise sandwiches for weeks on end. His parents fought constantly about money. The stress was eating the family alive. But young Stanley found his escape in books and movies. He devoured adventure stories, science fiction, and anything that could transport him away from their cramped, tense apartment. By the age of 16, he was already working part-time jobs to help support his family. He delivered sandwiches, worked as a theater usher, and even wrote obituaries for a news service. Then, in 1940, at just 17 years old, he got his first real break. His cousin's husband, Martin Goodman, owned a small publishing company called Timely Comics. They needed someone to fetch coffee, fill inkwells, and erase pencil marks. The pay was $8 a week. Stan took the job immediately. His first published work wasn't a superhero story, but a 2-page text filler titled The Traitor's Revenge. He used the pen name Stan Lee, saving his real name, Stanley Lieber, for the great American novel he still hoped to write one day. Just months after he started, the editor and art director abruptly quit. Goodman, the owner, pointed at Stan and said, "You're the editor now." Just like that, at 19 years old, Stan was suddenly in charge of a comic book company. But Timely Comics was struggling. The company's strategy was simple: copy whatever was popular instead of creating original ideas. They made superhero knockoffs, romance knockoffs. There was no vision, no soul. For the next 20 years, Stan churned out forgettable stories, feeling like a hack. Meanwhile, his personal life was suffering. His father died in 1949, a loss that devastated him. Then his mother passed away in 1957, leaving him feeling orphaned by the age of 35. With a wife and a young daughter to support, the pressure became crushing. By 1960, he was completely burned out and ready to quit comics entirely. He felt like he had wasted his life writing disposable pulp fiction. That's when his wife, Joan, gave him some life-changing advice. She said, "Before you quit, why don't you write one comic book the way you want to write it? Write the kind of story you want to read. The worst that can happen is you get fired and you want to quit anyway." That single spark changed everything. Around the same time, Marvel's owner asked him to create a superhero team to compete with DC's popular Justice League. Instead of creating perfect, godlike heroes, Stan, inspired by his wife's words, decided to create flawed, real characters. In 1961, the Fantastic Four was born. They weren't a team of perfect allies. They were a dysfunctional family, constantly bickering and fighting with each other, as much as with villains, all while wrestling with their own insecurities. Readers absolutely loved it. The comic flew off the shelves. Then, in 1962, he created Spider-Man. Peter Parker wasn't a billionaire or an alien. He was a nerdy, bullied teenager from Queens, dealing with real-world problems like homework, rent, and girl trouble. His motto became one of the most famous lines in all of fiction: "With great power comes great responsibility." Other companies told Stan that Spider-Man would fail, that no one wanted to read about a hero with so many problems. But he became Marvel's most iconic and beloved hero. After that, the floodgates opened. Stan, along with legendary artists like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, created the Hulk, the X-Men, Thor, Iron Man, and Daredevil, each with deep emotional struggles and human frailties. Stan revolutionized storytelling by creating heroes who felt human. He also revolutionized fan culture. He started writing personal, chatty letters to the readers in the back of the comics. He created catchphrases like Excelsior and True Believers. He made fans feel like they were part of an exclusive club, a part of the Marvel family. Marvel Comics grew from the brink of bankruptcy to an industry titan. Stan pioneered the idea of the Marvel Universe, a shared world where all the characters coexisted and could cross over into each other's stories decades before the movies did the same thing. By the 2000s, Marvel movies were becoming global blockbusters. Stan became a beloved pop culture icon, famous for his fun cameo appearances in every Marvel film. He lived long enough to see the characters he created out of desperation become billion-dollar franchises and cultural touchstones for a new generation. Stan Lee passed away in 2018 at the age of 95. He rose from poverty and obscurity to become a global legend. His story proves that your greatest failures can often become the fuel for your greatest strengths. He lost his parents, felt like a failure in his career, and almost quit on his dream, but he kept going. He built an empire of hope from a foundation of despair. Heroes aren't perfect people who have no problems. Heroes are ordinary people who face incredible challenges and choose to keep fighting, no matter what. At 38 years old, Stan Lee thought he was a failure, but his greatest success was still right around the corner. Your past doesn't define you. Your persistence does. Stan Lee didn't just create superheroes, he proved that any of us with enough heart can become one. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Stan Lee creation? Thanks for watching, Excelsior.